Wrong! Conan, what is best in life?
To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of their women.
That is good. That is good.
Welcome back to Thinking Criticals. This is Wes. It's time to, talk to my good friend Aaron Sparrow, comic book writer, editor, about, who can you trust in comic books these days? And like Aaron said before we came on air, we're raw dogging it today. We're just going to go in unfiltered. We're going to let you know exactly how we feel. How you doing, Aaron?
Hubba, hubba, hubba. Money, money, money. Who do you trust?
Absolutely. So, obviously the comic book industry is bigger than creators. There's publishers out there, there's media, there's YouTube critics, there's all kinds of people covering comic books or creating comics. And I don't know, it feels like there's a large amount of distrust between the customers and, the people that are supposed to be supplying, the content, and also the people that are supposed to be making you aware of the content, what's good and what the things are all about. Where did all this mistrust come from? Do you think it's built up over years? Has it always been like this?
No, I think it's built up over years. I think that once social media became a big thing and you could connect to the creators that whose work you followed, and then you started to find out that those creators were awful, awful people, and people started to see that the comic media was a bunch of shills. You had Comics Alliance, which was basically out there pushing an agenda, and then that agenda failed to generate enough clicks to keep them alive. But all those people broke off and worked their way into the comic book industry and started to destroy it from within. So I think that people observed that, because of social media, they were really able to see that and see the attitudes of the people that were going out and working for these companies, and seeing their disdain for the customer, their disgust with the readership and how they wanted a different readership that so far does not exist and has not materialized. And people rightly started to distrust, everybody that was involved with the industry. And now it seems like distrust is the default. And when a new creator comes on the scene, everybody's kind of side-eyeing them, waiting to see what they're going to do, because they don't automatically get that trust that maybe comic creators did before we got to see, how insane a lot of them were.
Yeah, you think about the media. Wizard Comics used to be like a tastemaker. That's where you went to find out who the hot young talent, who was the best artist of the day and everything. But even after a while, that thing kind of ends up falling apart because people at Wizard Magazine realized that could be a springboard into a comic book career within the industry. And they started having to shill out. You couldn't quite be so honest about your takes on what's hot and what's not. Maybe you would start promoting something as being good, even though you knew it wasn't. And of course, the fans, the customers of Wizard Magazine could see right through it. And it's almost become a blueprint for what comic book media is today. You remember Collider?
Yeah, I remember Collider.
Collider, I used to watch that thing every day. I think I've talked about this here on the channel a couple times. But I used to watch their content every day because I'm a big movie, TV fan. They did comic book content as well on there. And I remember when The Last Jedi came out. I saw that with my wife. She ended up having to leave the movie early because I was really frustrated. And she was like, all right, we're going to go play. And I went to go watch like the Collider The Last Jedi spoiler review to at least listen to Harloff and Mark Ellis and a couple others to rip it to shreds. And every single one of those people on the panel who I knew went to the premiere, right? They walked the red carpet, got to go to the premiere of The Last Jedi. They all said it was great. And at that very moment, I was like, I can't trust a word these people say. And I think a lot of people have had that same experience with comic book media.
That is largely, I think, why YouTube has exploded. People, whether they agree with you or not, are looking for authenticity. They don't want to be lied to, and they can smell shilling. It used to be that people used to really like and respect Kevin Smith because he used to give his honest opinion, warts and all. And if you didn't agree with it, you didn't agree with it, but you knew you were getting his honest opinion. And where they kind of trapped everybody is with this access media. Kevin wants to get gigs. He wants to work in Hollywood, so he's got to play the game. He's got to cry over, everything that comes out. Oh, the last scene of, Rise of Skywalker was so beautiful. I just cried. And it's like, nobody buys it. Nobody buys it. They know what you're doing. We can see through the inauthenticity. And we demand that you give us, you give us your honest opinion. We want that. We want to know what your real feelings are. We don't want to be lied to. And with everybody lying to us, from the government to the media, it's just everything. We're just being bombarded with propaganda nonstop, and that's bled into the pop culture media because they have to say it's great, because otherwise they're not going to get invited to the premiere, and they're not going to get to rub elbows with the celebrities on the red carpet. So what we want is people who have no interest in that, who aren't affected by that, who aren't impressed by celebrity, who want good stories, who want good product. That's who we're interested in hearing from. And that's why YouTube has exploded. And that's why these entertainment companies can't get a foothold, because we just don't trust you.
So there are a few places that I go to personally for comic book reviews, and some news that for generally speaking, if it's on their site, I trust it. Weird Science, there's a Weird Science Marvel and a Weird Science DC. They do reviews. And as far as I've seen, those are pretty much the most honest reviews you're going to get across the board. They're critical of things that are, for the most part, bad. They praise things that are good. Sometimes I disagree with what's good and what's bad for the most, but they don't praise everything. I think they're pretty critical of things. BatmanNews.com, obviously, Josh from that site comes on. He's a contributor, but I've been reading that one for a long time. But that one's, kind of cornered into Batman himself. There's actually a reviewer on Bleeding Cool that is really good. His name's Hannibal Taboo. It's the only thing on Bleeding Cool that you can actually trust. I don't know why he's there, but he's really good. And then for news, Comic-Con with their sales numbers and the analysis that goes along with it from John Jackson Miller. I don't always agree with what he says, but I know that he's not shilling. He's giving the information in. His analysis is as he perceives it. I don't think anyone's trying to force him to say anything. And then also ICV2.com. For the most part, the information that comes out there is pretty much this is the information. There's almost no spin ever attached to it. Those are really when I think of the media that cover comic books, those are the ones that I think are pretty solid across the board.
I'll have to check some of those out. For the most part, for me, I don't have time to review a lot of media, so I'm always on the go. So for me, it's like listening to podcasts or listening to people like Clownfish, who I know personally, and therefore trust their opinion because I know who you are. I know you guys aren't shills. I know you're going to give me your honest opinion, even if we end up disagreeing. I'd say that one podcast that I really enjoy is I like The Weekly Planet with Nick and James and Mason. I think that those are, I don't always agree with them either. Sometimes I think that they're a little bit overly positive, but they'll tell you if something's crap.
and then I guess the other one's Rob Liefeld. I forgot to put him on there. If you go listen to his podcast, you are going to get the unfiltered Rob Liefeld truth.
I've not listened to his podcast, but I've seen his Twitter, so I know that he's going to give you the unvarnished opinion. Just no polish at all. Just here it is, just raw emotion.
Which is crazy as a creator who still works for Marvel and within the industry, to have somebody willing to criticize the industry is actually quite refreshing. That's one of the reasons I like it.
I see him once in a while at the Frankenstein show in City of Industry. He'll pop in to buy stuff. He actually bought a cable figure from me, so it's always neat to say like that one piece in that creator's collection came from me. So he bought cable the Josh Brolin cable from me, and Alex Ross, the Ra's al Ghul Batman animated figure in his collection is from me too. So that's kind of fun to see, kind of fun to know.
Now, when we get into publishers, obviously, it feels like DC is turning. They're going to all different style, kind of Marvel 5 or 6 years ago is what it feels like they're doing right now. I don't trust Marvel for the most part with any of their characters. I can only trust certain creators. And really the only publishers that when I see that publisher's name on the title, I'm like, well, I think this will probably be good. It's Vault Comics, Boom Studios, Storm King Comics, which is essentially just like John Carpenter ideas that have been put out in comic book form. Also, there's another one out there. AWA, I think, does a pretty good job, but it's hard to trust any of the publishers, especially with characters that have been around for a while.
I trust Alterna because Peter Simeti's a good guy. There's individual creators that I trust. Like if Chip Zdarsky's on a book, he's earned my trust over the last few years that he's going to deliver a good story, and that I'm mostly going to enjoy it. I think he's really turned a corner and gotten really good. So he's kind of a brand that I trust. But there's not too many anymore, and I don't trust Marvel at all, especially when ordering. I'm looking at these books and I'm like, nope, that's going to be terrible. That's going to be terrible. I'm not going to be able to sell that. I'm not going to be able to sell that. Marvel's marketing spin became so transparent so long ago that you can't trust it. You know what you're going to get. I know that there's creators that I trust to be terrible. When their name's on a book, I don't order it because I know I can't sell it because it's going to be mediocre. It's not going to resonate with the customers, and it's just best to avoid it. I think as far as creators that I trust Mark Pellegrini and Tim Lim. I trust that they're always going to deliver on their crowdfunds because they have a stellar record of getting that stuff out to people, and I know that it's going to be quality. I like what they do. Let's see who else.
Well, you can trust Doug Ernst. He's kind of in the Tim Lim, Mark Pellegrini sphere.
Yeah. Doug delivers a Salt Like Soul Finder is a good story, and he's a guy that says what he means and means what
and
he
he's
says.
full time now. He announced today when we're recording this that it was his last day at in the news office. He's a full time comic man.
I know, and when most people are trying to bail out of comics, Doug's going all in. So obviously he feels confident, and I think that's great. I'd like to see people feeling confident in their ability to deliver. That's the difference between winners and losers, is that winners will bet on themselves. So I wish nothing but good things for Doug in his endeavors.
What is the feeling you're getting from DC Comics customers? Because just 2 or 3 years ago, I could read pretty much all of DC Comics and be certain, as long as it wasn't Mark Russell or Brian Michael Bendis, that it was going to be a damn good comic book. Right now, there's like 2 or 3 that I think are really good, and then there's a bunch of crap, and then there's a bunch of shit below it. It's shocked how fast they've fallen.
Yeah, no, and they've fallen in sales in the stores that I order for. We're actually eliminating DC entirely from one of the stores. I'm up to doing ordering for 3 stores now, and one of them we're just out of the DC business. We can't sell enough copies to hit any discount that makes it worth carrying them. And a lot of it, from the customer base that has turned away is because they're like, well, this is the route that Marvel went, and I didn't like it when Marvel did it, and I don't like it when DC, now that DC is doing it. They're hiring a lot of the same trash writers that aren't given any kind of editorial oversight or any kind of direction, and just get to turn in the same bland, predictable stories over and over again. So, like I said, certain creators' name on a book, I know not to order it because nobody's going to pick it up. They're going to avoid it like the plague. Even if it's a book that they already pick up and now this writer's coming in, I know that that's the end of their pull right there. And, I'll contact them and they're like, oh, yeah.
It was crazy. Kelly Sue DeConnick, when she came on Aquaman, and, Dan Abnett's not a huge name. I think he's great. But he had Aquaman sales pretty steady at like 40,000. The moment she jumped on, it dropped 25% that month and just steadily went down until it went below 20,000.
No, I cut orders immediately when she came on because I knew that was going to happen. And it got down to a point where I was carrying 1 shelf copy of Aquaman until I wasn't, because every month that shelf copy would be going to the back issue bin. Nobody would buy it.
You're going to have a full set of Kelly Sue DeConnick Aquaman.
Yeah, hey, if somebody wants it, I can pop that up on eBay for you real quick. I'll give you an excellent.
It's crazy how a creator can really just destroy a title or even bump it up. Some of the creators I personally trust, and we've mentioned some of the crowdfunders. Robert Venditti is my favorite writer. Everything he does that I've read from him, pretty much across the board, has at a minimum been good, and at a maximum been fantastic, like amongst the best comic stories I've ever read. In fact, I would say his X-O Manowar is number 2 to Matt Kent, another writer I would put up there to his Rye. But Matt Kent's work pretty much is it's at a minimum it's like really, really solid, and normally it's just really good. Matt Kent's another one. Chip Zdarsky, you mentioned him, but only at the big 2. Because if you go out there and you get one of those Chip Zdarsky like indie books where it's creator owned, you're likely to get some fairy dicks and all kinds of weird shit in there. As long as it's a big 2 book, I think Zdarsky pretty much stays the characters. I think Liam Sharp's art He always delivers. Ron Garney is always going to be a fantastic artist on anything that he does. Sean Gordon Murphy as a writer-artist. Daniel Warren Johnson is a name that's absolutely rising right now that I think, I can always trust what he's going to do. Obviously, Aaron Lopresti, he hasn't been doing as much Big Two work, but he's got his Indiegogo going out right now as well for the Wraith of God. Wraith of God.
Well, I think once DiDio was canned and they reshuffled everything at DC, I think Lopresti, longtime artist, probably had a pretty decent page rate, probably not, the highest page rate, but a decent one. And as they started to cut corners, he probably got left out in the cold. So, he decided to do what winners do, and that's bet on himself. And so far, he's crushing it. His campaign's going really great. It's over 60,000 in 7 days. So you can't fault him. That's absolutely what creators should be doing. They should be betting on themselves because, even if you knock it out of the park for years and years at these companies, even if you create things that then they then use in the movies and make $1 billion, you're going to get a nice little $5,000 check, and then it's like, see ya. We paid you off. We didn't even have to give you that. You should be happy for those crumbs. Yeah.
So there's just not a lot of there are creators I absolutely trust. There just isn't enough of them right now, and that's too bad.
There's far more that I distrust. So that's a huge problem as a customer. I've cut my buying way back, and I used to be a big comics buyer, and now I regularly only pick up maybe 5 titles a month.
Actually, there's a couple more. I guess Jeff Johns, Peter J. Tomasi, but even they've moved away from DC Comics. It's really strange.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It's like I'm not including a lot of guys that have just bailed out. They're done. They're out. When it comes to horror, I think that James Tynion's dependable. Although lately, I think his stories have been too stretched out, too decompressed. He's clearly kind of like just stretching the premises really thin. So that's a little bit of a problem, but still overall solid concepts and solid stories. But yeah, he's bolted to Substack, just like so many of the top creators are going to split. And it's like, congratulations! Now the industry is all of the no talent hacks that you guys hired, and good luck with that. And you guys got what you wanted. You got complete control of the comics industry. The Big Two, it's all yours. What are you going to do with it? You're going to ride it down to the bottom.
Whittle it down to nothing. Because really, yeah, like the premise of the thing is there's just like, who can you trust? I don't trust almost any of these creators at DC to Marvel to do anything good with the characters outside of a handful of people. And it's too bad. It shouldn't be like that.
There's no editors that you can trust either. It used to be like you would be like, okay, well that you had your Ann Nesenti as an editor. You had
Louise Simonson, Peter Tomasi started out as an editor.
Yeah,
Denny O'Neil was a fantastic editor.
Absolutely, Carl Potts. These guys that when we were growing up, that were the editors, and it's like you knew when you got their book, no matter who the writer was, they were going to work with them, and it was going to be solid. I miss when I picked up like a ton of Marvel books, and almost every book was good. Some great, but good was the low end of the bar, and everything was just like a satisfying read, and everything felt cohesive, and it felt like a shared universe. That's another big problem, is the editors have lost the trust of the readers because there's no consistency. There's no cohesive feel to the Marvel universe. You'll get a character in one book, and then you'll read them in another book, and they're just written completely different, and there's no editorial oversight. So yeah, you've lost the trust of the customer, and you've actively vilified the customer. So yeah, they're not going to trust you. Now the nice thing is, comic fans are forgiving. If you, like we talked about in a previous video, you do a face turn and, keep your nose clean, they'll forgive you. But, a lot of these creators don't really seem interested in that because they're not interested in selling books.
Who I can trust more than anybody really is Chris Cantwell. Anything he writes is going to turn to complete garbage within 4 pages of publication. First 4 pages, you'll absolutely hate the character and you'll dislike him even more than you did before he got on there. He's like the new Tom King or Jason Aaron at comic books. He's a front runner.
I just dropped Iron Man entirely at 2 shops because I can't sell as many copies as I could sell with Dan Slott, and I could barely sell Dan Slott. So that tells you something.
He makes Dan Slott look like Teddy O'Neill's Iron Man. It's so pathetic.
Well, the problem is that comics used to be written by guys who had lived life, like guys like Jack Kirby who'd gone to war and had life experiences that they could draw on. And now it's just a bunch of,
male feminists is what it is, Aaron. Say what it is.
Yeah, male feminist, really, really.
Did you see that Andy Richter tweet yesterday? I'm a male feminist. Oh, my goodness.
Who said this?
Andy Richter. Never would have guessed that.
What? Now, let me ask you: is that an admission of guilt? Because anytime anyone says they're a male feminist, that's usually the precursor to us finding out that they're
something worth noting. And within 5 years, we're like, yeah, that maybe that panned out, maybe it did. I don't know.
Yeah, no, sex pests.
It's a flag. But yeah, it's just,
I feel like when you come out and you say you're a male feminist, you're essentially the Riddler. Like I'm a criminal. I want to get caught.
Yes. Yes, you've invited Batman to investigate you until he can find some incriminating evidence, I guess.
Yeah, I guess if you, if you want to really boil it down, like if somebody asked me, what am I would say I'm an egalitarian. I just anybody who comes to the table, I give them the benefit of the doubt that they're going to be able to perform, and it doesn't matter, what their sex is, what their sexuality is, what their skin color is. None of that matters. It's like like I said, it's egalitarian. It's just everybody starts off on an equal footing. And from there, you can either go up in my estimation or you can go down, but it's going to be based on your character and your actions.
If I were to describe myself, I would say I'm a cynical bastard that likes to be surprised when people prove that they're actually good at something. There you go. He was actually good. Shocked. I can never be disappointed because the bar is so low to begin with. Like, I don't know. I don't want to even trust that guy. I don't even know who he is. Then you read like, all right, that was good. Never mind. Yeah, maybe he's the one.
Blank slate to me. You're a tabula rasa. What are you going to? Now show me what you got.
So
I like that's Rick and Morty. Show me what you got. That's not just because I have a giant melon.
Listen, your melon is not that big, and especially it looks bigger because of your beard. If you shaved it, your head would look smaller.
Well, I'm not losing the beard because then I just look like a baby.
Exactly. Well, my wife wants me to shave my beard because she says it makes me look young, but I've told her none of the kids have ever seen me without a beard. It would scare them at this point. I can't do that. I don't want to scare the children.
Makes you look like Daniel Bryan. So that's why would you want to get away from that?
Absolutely not. Yes, right. All right, Aaron. This was a good time. Who can you trust in comics? I think I gave out a few media sources. Some of the publishers that I think, for the most part, are good down the line. Aaron gave his as well, and the creators that we kind of trust. But there's a reason that most people don't trust any of this stuff, because, what's Dr. Phil say? The best indicator of future behavior is past behavior.
Absolutely true. And hey, trust but verify. That's what I say.